In 2004, professional boxer and heavyweight champion Mike Tyson filed for bankruptcy with $30 million in debt, despite accumulating over $300 million during the course of his career, which poses a great question about the money itself, because a great deal of our actions or our motivations in life have an underlying desire or need to acquire it. But what's the point in acquiring it if the greatest issue seems to be our ability to manage it? Of course, these statistics are reflective in the UK and the US, but consider a moment your own attitude towards money and how money exists in your own life. What is money to you? Does it seem to enter your life and immediately leave once you have it? Has it ever placed you in a vulnerable position of vulnerability that grew you closer to a quick, rich scheme, or a guru telling you that you can get rich if you just bought their course? My channel tends to aim at these topics to some degree or another. I realize that our perceptions of money are sometimes more crucial than our ability to generate it, especially when our very brains are wired in such a way that prevents us from being financially sensible. Does it really matter if you're earning more than 6 figures a year if by the time of the year you have nothing left to show for it? Where is the disconnect? It's time we solve that mystery, but not only that, explore a better framework for understanding money, a framework commonly towards personal finance, but oftentimes missed in informal education. A question: what is money, or rather, what does money represent? When you make a purchase from Amazon, when you're paid for your time working a job, what is the significance of money in these transactions? Money is commonly defined as a medium of exchange and an instrument to facilitate the sale, purchase, or trade of goods between parties. But I don't think this says much about what money actually represents. I think a better way of looking at money is an expression of value. You hand over a certain amount of money to purchase something because you perceive it to be value equivalent to the amount of money that you handed over. Of course, the price is often not determined by you as an individual, but the market as a whole. But hone in on this one point. Money equals value. Why is this important? Because often we give money a moral significance.
A quote that I'm sure you've heard: money is the root of all evil.
We look at someone who seems to have a large amount of wealth and think they got lucky. Who did they take advantage of to get that position? Who had to lose in order for them to gain? Another, what value was created in order to generate that money? Understanding money is simply value is the best way to understanding that money is not necessarily evil, nor does it make a person evil. Sure, there are some things as scammers who convince you that what they have to sell is worth value, but that doesn't say much about the money, more so than their own morals. Money simply opens your options and broadens your horizons. The choice you make with that money has everything to do with your own moral dispositions. So money is an expression of value. Now what? How does this change the reality of a person living paycheck to paycheck or someone who is consumed by credit card debt? The simple mention of money equals value changes nothing. It may make you see money in a different light, but what part of that is actual advice? To answer that question, I'll pose another question. What is your relationship with money? Money will come into your life and it will leave. This is a relationship that is often expressed by your income and expenses. Another practical way of expressing this I particularly like is your production versus consumption. For the most part, money will enter your life because you have produced something in the form of value, or for most of us, this value will come in the form of labor, a job. Money will leave when you have consumed something like a Netflix subscription, a new car, house, and in many ways we can look at the net worth of an individual with a matrix for determining the relationship what part of the consumption versus production. Now cast your mind back to those statistics. I mentioned at the start of this video. What part of the consumption versus production relationship do you think is at fault here? Consider yourself here for a moment. Think about all the money that has entered your life and left. How much of that do you still have in your possession today, or invested into some sort of asset? And which part of this relationship do you feel unbalanced or needs improvement? The likelihood is both. But for most of us, the biggest issue lies in our consumption. Remember the career builder that found that 78% of American workers live in paycheck to paycheck. Well, it also found that of the workers who made $100,000 or more a year, 1 of 10 of them were living paycheck to paycheck. Now, you could argue that someone who earns 6 figures a year still like to earn money, but when you are paid a figure that is well above the average wage of cost of living, and yet you still find a way to spend it all, the argument of your relationship with consuming must be fixed. Before you even consider your relationship production, as any wealthy celebrity who have filed bankruptcy can show us, production means nothing when you have a problem with consumption. The rat race is an endless, self-defeating, or pointless pursuit. Sometimes the rat race is conflated with working a 9-to-5 job. It's a comparison often used by a certain individual to guilt you into buying programs and books from them. But this seems extremely unfair, mostly because it aims to villainize a job and excludes the fact that there are those who either love or are perfectly fine with their jobs or have other aspirations aside their 9-to-5. The real rat race is one that is living on a financial edge, being one paycheck away from being broke, constantly feeling as though the money enters your life, it immediately disappears. And the more responsibilities you have, the more dangerous this relationship becomes. The loss of a job, an unexpected health accident, or any unexpected circumstance for that matter can throw your entire financial position into turmoil. And consider the mental consequences of living on this financial edge. Your job no longer becomes an option. It becomes a necessity in order to keep funding your lifestyle or to keep paying off debt. Quote Tyler Dundon from the Fight Club, "The things you own end up owning you." What's the silver lining? It doesn't have to continue like that. The first stepping stone is personal finance will have you drawing an awareness to your relationship with money. This is often done by journalizing your monthly expenses, categorized as housing, transportation, food, utilities, entertainment, and so on. It's about understanding yourself as a consumer, but this part is tough in behavior finance. This feeling can often be labeled as an ostrich effect, which is our tendency to want to avoid negative financial information. It's that feeling you get when you refuse to look at your bank account after a night out, fearing what it might show. And yet, when you part this state, it's time for you to take control over your behavior as a consumer. This often involves the idea of budgeting, deciding each month how much you aim to spend on each of these categories and sticking to it. It's about systematically looking at what you consume and finding ways to which you can minimize these things to ultimately live below your means. In other words, having a lifestyle that still leaves you with enough money to save and invest in some form or another. It's important to note, before you ever decide to invest, one of these most common practices in personal finance is to keep an emergency fund, a specific amount of savings that you can hold on to in case of an emergency. This fund will typically hold a 3 to 6 months worth of expenses. The idea, however, of living below your means is an important one, because why would we choose to do otherwise? Why would we choose to live a lifestyle we cannot afford, or one that places us in this financial edge? I could make an entire video on our cognitive buying, the ostrich effect, is one of which can affect your financial position. Then there is the hyperbolic discounting, a tendency to favor short-term rewards as opposed to greater rewards in the future. This is you choosing to purchase a new pair of shoes instead of saving that money towards a future investment. Or there's social proof, our tendency to think and act as others around us think and act. When the people around you are buying one thing, you buy it too. Or when the people around you view money as evil, you're likely to assume the same thing too. The phrase "keeping up with the Joneses" summarizes this great problem of consumption. It's a phrase defined by Google. It's trying to emulate or not to be outdone by one's neighbor. They buy a new Porsche, you buy one too. They have nice clothes, you get some too. They renovate their home, you do it. all in an attempt to be impressive or to keep up with others due to some form of social pressure. Only in today's world, the Joneses are not literal neighbors. They're far more present than that.
To social approval. We really care what other people think of us.
But the problem is we're measuring our self-worth by how many people like what we're posting.
Governor of the Bank of Canada stated it succinctly. For most Canadians, debt is a fact of life, at least at some point.
To be clear, I'm not saying that purchasing an expensive piece of clothing, jewelry, or sports car is a bad thing, nor do I think consuming is a bad thing. The aim of this video isn't to philosophize about the repercussions of materialistic views of the world. It's about drawing an awareness to who you are as a consumer. Do you care more about appearing as though you have money or actually having money? The rat race isn't about working a 9-to-5 job, but living life on such an edge that it means chasing the next thing, whether a paycheck or material possession, such that your greater life goals and ambitions goals placed in the background in order to continue this. A budget and keeping an account of your expenses have proven time and time again to work and draw you out of this race. It's fun to talk about making money or imagine having as much wealth as possible, but what's the point of having a relationship with money as a consumer when it means losing it all or having to work non-stop in order to fund that lifestyle? That is the real rat race. But with all that being said, let's talk about making money.
Now, the stuff we teach here and have for almost 30 years is proven.
What's up, you guys? It's Graham here. So we got to take a moment and talk about what's going on in the stock market, because as we're finishing up the week, stocks are...
Personal finance channels like Graham Stephan and Dave Ramsey are great for learning how to work on your consumption side of the equation. But if there was one thing I wish they spoke more about, would be their ability to make money, and I understand why they don't do this. It's easier to reduce your expenses in the amount that you consume than it is to increase your income. When speaking to a mass audience, giving the advice that works for most people is typically the best choice. We see there are entire communities built up around focusing on frugality. The FIRE community is one example of this. They talk about the strategy of living extremely frugal, saving and investing as early as possible with the intentions of retiring as early as possible. Minimalists share a similar view of the FIRE community. Although more deep-rooted in philosophical positions about the world and materialism at large, people like Graham Stephan and Dave Ramsey promote strategies that fall in the spectrum of living frugally, saving a lot of money and investing in the long run. And there's nothing inherently wrong with the strategy. It works for a wide range of people with varying degrees of income. But let's be honest, Graham Stephan doesn't rely on cutting coupons or living an incredibly frugal lifestyle to be making $100,000 to $200,000 a month from YouTube. Nor does Dave Ramsey rely on strategies to have an estimated net worth of $55 million. These people are utilizing a means of production at mass scales. In my video, The Secrets to Money, I talk about money being a perceived value in the market and in an impactful way of starting a business and building business credit. Finding a problem in the market, creating a solution for the problem, and selling that solution to the market as a scale. This is the entrepreneur route. And a successful business on a scale is able to produce a large amount of value to a society, such that your production side equation grows exponentially in comparison to a standard job. But this isn't a route everyone can take, or should they try to. It's about reflecting on your own capabilities and whether entrepreneurship is best suited to your direction. With that being said, increasing your production doesn't have to just come from a strict definition of a business. Graham Stephan uses YouTube as a vehicle to produce something, in this case, a video about personal finance at mass scale. It's one reason I chose to make videos on YouTube as well. It's a vehicle to produce something, in the case documentary style videos on a mass scale, to a point where I can do it full time and build a business around it. Producing is about providing relative value to a market in some kind of shape or form. I utilize my skills with production, accounting, storytelling, and video editing to create videos that I hope to be somewhat educational and entertaining. And thankfully, the market is responding positively. Your form of production may be developing an app or software that is solving a problem you believe the market will pay money for. Solutions, or perhaps a fitness program branded extremely well and utilizes its community better than most of the fitness brands, as I believe the case would be in Francis and what he did with Gymshark. But for most people, labor in the form of a standard 9-to-5 job will be their means of production, but this doesn't mean your ability to produce stops there. Understanding yourself as a producer is about understanding ways in which you can produce value to the market. If you can produce value on a large scale, that means they're earning money on a large scale. The internet has thankfully provided a great deal of opportunity for us to be able to produce something and to put it out to the market, whatever the market actually wants. What you have produced can only be determined once you have released whatever it is that you produced. So to summarize, it's first important to bring awareness to yourself as a consumer, understanding what you have purchased and why you purchased by journalizing your consumption and then giving yourself a budget to manage and control that consumption. Producing then becomes a matter of maximizing the amount of value you can bring into society through a job, a business, or some other means of production. This is the framework that has helped me greatly, as I am sure it's helped countless of others who have invested interest.
Like, this
in
isn't
making
just
money.
sushi we're talking about anymore. Like, this is substantial. Yeah, and then to go from that to like this.
Focusing. Is that $170,454?
Yeah.
That's insane.
Hello, my friends. Before you click off this video just yet, I just want to say one thing. Thank you so much for watching this video to the end. You being here to this point is hopefully proof that I have provided some type of value to you in some way or another. So be sure to hit the like button. And if you want to see more videos around the topics of business, money, and finance in general, then be sure to hit the subscribe button.